Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Killjoy Jake podcast. Today, we're talking all about the Black Christmas franchise, and I'm joined here today with Matt from Slashin' It with Matt. How you doing, man?
Hey guys, what's going on?
Going all the way back to 1974 when the original released, this is oftentimes considered one of the first slasher movies to really ever come out. How do you feel about that, Matt?
Well, you know what? I used to think it was Halloween 1978, but the truth is that it is Black Christmas 1974. I do believe some people might even say going back to the 60s, it might be Psycho, but to me, that I don't know, that feels more like psychological thriller, not slasher. So I would agree that it would be the 1974 classic Black Christmas.
I feel like this is the first movie where we really get a lot of the tropes that we know today, like the whole idea of like the final girl, the like iconic killer. You're getting phone calls. The flow of it, especially, is the biggest difference between Psycho and this movie. I think like it just feels more like a slasher, more of a slasher, where Psycho feels more of like just a psychological thriller, like you said. I think that this movie is it's very silly and very scary at the same time, which I think is a nice mix. How do you feel about the overall tone of this film?
You know what? I seen it years ago. Wanted to touch up on it for this podcast, so I watched it again last night. And you know what? I really liked it. I feel like maybe with horror movies, some of these political angles, I mean, even going back to then, I don't know. I feel like they should not be in horror films because to me, it takes away the reason we're there in the theater.
So what's that? What is that reason to you?
I don't know. I feel like if you're going to have a debate with someone about a horror film, it should be on the horror content, friendly disagreements. I feel like with what they do, depending on, the people that go see it, depending what your political views are, I'm thinking that it could take away from the horror side of it and people could just be arguing about politics.
And you don't want that. You don't want a political argument in a horror film. I like when you can put something like with a message in there. Like I personally, I believe the best movies have that. But I think that this movie, like, yes, the horror elements, if we're just talking about that, are very effective and very scary. The kills are very, very dark and messed up too in this one. Some of the sequels like have things happen more off screen or so. I like that this one is a little more brutal. The remake definitely steps it up a little bit. But how do you feel about the kills in this movie?
For the most part, for the time that it's in, I think they're pretty well done, honestly. They're not as graphic as they are in the 2006 remake, but it gets the job done. The killer in that movie kind of reminds me of Michael Myers, stalkerish, scary. The moves alone, you don't see his whole body, you see his hands, his arms, things like that. And to me, that's scary. Claire in the beginning, when he was hiding in her closet, and the way he kind of just jumped on her with the plastic from her hangers, that was scary to me. The effect on that was great, and I think like the suspense in that movie, it was all there.
It's creepy, man. You can kind of see his face back there when she goes into the closet at first, and you're like, shit, whoa, that's crazy. Right. I love that one, man. Great way to start this movie for sure. This comes out alongside like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I think a lot of people accredit as a slasher, but I feel like that it gets like really art housey with a lot of the stuff that it does. I don't know if I would classify that necessarily 100% as a slasher. I would say this one kind of gets into that as well, like especially with like Barb's death, where she's getting stabbed with the unicorn and all that, and you kind of just see like her bloody hand hit all the other glass unicorns. I love that. I love the way that this movie's shot, and some of the silly antics of it as well. But how do you feel about like the very scary and ambiguous ending that we get from this film?
To me, that ending kind of shocked me. So you see Jess in her boyfriend, I think his name was Peter. At the first moment, I'm like, oh, are they both dead? Because I didn't remember. And then you find out he's dead. She's alive. So it's like, obviously, at the moment, I thought it was him. But then all the cops leave the house. The phone rings. You see the attic opening still open. He's still in the house. So it's like, okay, when those cops left, did he go and kill her or did he not? An ending where you don't get a conclusion because the killer didn't die. You don't know what he's going to do next.
And they didn't even find all the bodies. Like in particular, the one that, the one dad or whatever has been looking for the entire movie. It's like, it's still up there. It's still up in the attic.
Right at the window too. And so was Mrs. Max.
It's almost a little ironic because it's like, it's right there. You can see it, and they can't find it. Some of the phone calls we get in this one are super obscene and very much so influenced like Kevin Williamson while writing something like Scream. How do you feel about some of the like just more obscene and upsetting phone calls throughout the this entire movie?
When I heard that, I was in shock because going back to 1974, I'm like, that's some pretty dark language, like something you'd hear maybe in the 90s. I don't think you can get away now with using language like that, but it was the things he was saying to those girls were pretty dark. But it was so funny seeing that language in that time, and it was definitely a step up from what we got in the 2006, like language wise and what he says to the girls.
Yeah, and I also really like that it escalates. Like, yes, it starts
Mhm.
off with like pretty awful language and all that, but then it
Right.
slowly becomes like he's threatening her. I think the last thing he says is like, "I'm going to kill you," and then hangs up. You know?
Right. Right. And then like even with the first calls, they're like, oh, it's the moaner again. So at that point, he was just moaning, and then you're right, he stepped it up a little bit, saying the things he did. Then that's when Barb was talking to him, and then you're right. Then it got into like, oh, more threats type of thing. So yeah, he upped it up every time, and it was scary. Like the voice, just the squealing he was doing. It was very effective.
Absolutely, man. I think all three of the Black Christmas movies have like a pretty excellent cast across the board. But how do you feel about this original one? Like with like Olivia Hussey in the lead role, John Saxon playing the lieutenant.
I think he's great because he was also in 10 years later. He did Nightmare on Elm Street. He was
Yeah.
Nancy's dad, and no, he was great. He was very effective, very believable. Olivia Hussey. At first, I wasn't so keen on her acting, but as the film ramped up, I thought she did a great job.
She's a solid final girl, man. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely. This movie is like obviously super influential with like, Halloween and like a bunch of
Yeah.
other slashers. How does it stack up for you? This is like for me personally, it's a top 10. I love this is one of my favorite horror movies.
After watching it for that time, I would put it in my top 10.
So like I think like as we move along like through slashers and stuff, we have like I think Michael Myers is kind of like the first like iconic slasher that everyone
Yeah.
knows and stuff. But Billy, I feel like has kind of garnered a little bit of success in terms of being iconic, in terms of being like a recognizable slasher. What are your thoughts on like out of all three of these movies, which is like which Billy do you think is the most like the best represented? What do you think about the backstory from the remake versus the backstory here?
I think I'm gonna have to say the 2006 remake because we see a bit more Billy. It's not as suspenseful, but I think the Billy from 2006 is presented much more better than he was in the 1974. Honestly,
It's a little more ambiguous, and I think you get more backstory in 2006, which
Mhm.
is which is cool, versus the 74 movie where it's kind of just like, oh, here's this creepy guy that's living in the attic, and we
Right.
kind of get a little bits and pieces of him throughout. But yeah, speaking of that, yeah, just getting right into the remake here. What are your thoughts on the 2006 film?
It's like it's kind of gimmicky. It's kind of silly, but it's just a straight up slasher. That's it. All takes place on one night. I could see why people didn't like it. I loved the movie. Me and my wife, we watch it every year, Christmas Eve
Nice.
night, while we wrap the finishing presents for our kids, and that's just what we do. It's a tradition, has been for almost like 10 years now.
The kills are obviously like kind of a step up here in the
Mhm.
remake. How do you feel about a lot of these like eyeball focused death
Um,
sequences?
well, they go a little far with it, not like Art the Clown far, but they go far with it. I think they did too much of the same kills. We got bag over the face, stab through the eye, eyes pulled out. The only death that was different was Michelle Trachtenberg's death, where she got the ice skate thrown at her head. So I guess they mixed it up a little bit.
Yeah, I really like the scalp coming off, man. That was pretty sweet. I
Yeah.
will say in terms of like doing things like repeating things, yes, pretty much every other kill kind of falls under. This was something we already saw in Black Christmas 1974, or
Right.
it's something to do with eyes. Like this movie is just
Exactly.
obsessed with pulling people's eyes out for some reason. I think, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think it's like it works the first couple of times, and then it's like, okay, we're still pulling eyeballs out of people's faces. Like, let's do anything else. Like, what about tongues? What about ears? Why are we not cutting these things off? I don't
Exactly.
know. I'm also very nostalgic for its thousands look and coloring, and like the dark the black levels like way up and all that. How do you
Oh,
feel
yeah.
about like just the overall like look of this film versus like the 1974 movie?
That's what I was actually going to touch on next. Like the aesthetic of this film, the coloring, the Christmas vibes, it's all there. I wouldn't change a thing about it.
It's a very dark movie, but it has bright colors, which is I
Oh,
think
for
it's
sure.
nice.
Like, and it's like, a movie like that, most people wouldn't think, oh, hey, Christmas. I do every time I watch it. The aesthetics there, the vibes there. Every corner of that house is decorated for Christmas. It looks amazing.
Yes, it's a killer set. It's got a gross look to it, which with a bunch of pretty colors. It's a nice
Yep.
mix. I love it.
Yep.
We also have a pretty damn decent cast here. Mary Elizabeth Winstead playing a side character, which is like pretty surprising for like a Thousands role, because like I mean, she's lead character of like if it's like Scott Pilgrim or Final Destination 3. She's a bigger actress. How do you feel about the cast of this movie versus the original?
I think the cast honestly is great. I loved her from Final Destination 3, and I guess she was leaving to go home after filming Final Destination 3 when the director approached her in the airport after filming that. So that's how she got that role. I think she did great in the movie. I thought she would have been just coming off of Final Destination 3. I thought she might have had like a little bit of a bigger part, but overall she did great in the movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in this movie where I'm like, damn, this is a great cast, and like those people have smaller roles. It was like something on rewatch. I was like, wow, that's kind of shocking. That's that's why I wanted to make a note of that. I just thought that was interesting.
Right.
Something
and
I
then
forgot
you have
about.
like Katie Cassidy too. She was in so many horror movies in the 2000s.
Yeah.
She was in When a Stranger Calls, Nightmare on Elm Street remake, 2010. She just was in so much.
Oh yeah, it kind of feels like this whole the group of people making a lot of these remakes during this time period. We're very close knit in a weird way.
Right.
You see a lot of repeat cast members. You see a lot of like similar approaches to the same kind of remake too. Like for instance, in Black Christmas 2006, it's like there's a lot of plot lines and stuff that feel recycled from the previous movie, but done in a more modern take.
Right. Exactly. Like the difference here I saw was like everything they're secluded to that house only, as to where the original was like a few days span. You see characters outside of the house. You go to the police station, things like that. So, I mean, they did change it up a bit. Gave Billy and Agnes a backstory. The killer in half of this is Agnes alone until Billy gets there. So I thought that was different too.
Yeah, that was actually kind of a cool twist to me. The backstory is disgusting to me, which is upsetting. But I will say the two killer thing was cool. It was an interesting approach to how they did it. I really like this movie personally. But you said this is one of your favorite like Christmas horrors?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Hell yeah, man! This is a fun remake, man. I love Thousands remakes are so hit or miss for me, and this is a big hit in my opinion.
Absolutely, I wish it made a little bit more money, but it didn't.
Just didn't hit with audiences, I don't think, or I can't even remember. Like this had to have been released in late 2006, right? Like right around December, November time.
Yeah, I remember seeing this the day it came out. It came out Christmas Day, 2006.
It's weird. Something I've noticed with my channel is like horror stuff during this time of year is like no one really watches it as much. This time of year is more like for Christmas movies essentially.
Right.
Like your Die Hard is as crazy and R-rated as it gets this time of year, I think, for most people. But for us crazy horror fans, we're watching Black Christmas. Come on.
Oh, absolutely, and I'll sprinkle in like Christmas with the Cranks. I love that. Some. The Grinch, stuff like that. My kids
of course
love that movie. So, but I try to watch all the Christmas horror I can.
You got to represent horror in all the different seasons and months out there. So I always like to. I love that we're doing this podcast, I guess is what I'm getting to.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Christmas horror, like you got to keep it going. To me, it just, like I was a little sad, when Halloween ended, but it's like, okay, we have a new section of movies and things to get excited for. Just because it's Christmas. Just because it's Thanksgiving doesn't mean it's over. We have Thanksgiving coming out. It's a Wonderful Knife. Like there's so many more movies that we get to see this time of year.
And stay tuned because we will talk about them bad boys in just a second here. But before that, we do got to talk about one more movie, if you want to call it that. Black Christmas 2019 from Blumhouse. What are your thoughts on this particular remake, Matt?
First, I'll say they gave that entire movie away in the trailer. So going into it, I'm like, okay, you pretty much know who these killers are. This is also another one that I don't feel like focuses on the horror, and it kind of goes down that huge political route. And I get it. The situation that main character was in was terrible. And I feel like, okay, sprinkle in some things with, getting back at that guy, maybe have him be like one of the killer's victims or something like that. But I feel like as a whole, the whole movie like tried to make, I don't know, every man look bad. And that's all that movie wanted to do. It didn't want to focus on Christmas. It didn't want to focus on really anything else but that. And that's just how that movie made me feel.
I look back at the 74 movie, and I think like this message was done really well. It wasn't the entire movie. It just, you look at the 2019 movie though, and it's just so ham-fisted. Like everything that they're trying to say is shoved down your throat. It's messy. I've watched it a couple of times now, and I'm still not even 100% sure what it's trying to say. Like it's just like, what are you trying to do here? Like your good characters aren't even like good half the time. I don't know, man. I think that this is just the result of a rushed screenplay, because by the time that they were like writing this, I believe in January of the same year it released, they only had like 10-12 months or so to make the movie and just get it out for Blumhouse in December. Once again, the product of a rush production, which is no stranger to Blumhouse productions recently, which sucks.
Right. And I think like with more time, they could have maybe incorporated more.
I think Sophia Takal, like, who even said like about the film, she's like, I don't want this to come off as anti-man. I'm paraphrasing, but she like was saying like, I don't want this to come off as anti-man, but like I want to like specifically target and comment on like toxic masculinity. And I'm like, okay, but like you know, you got to do that a certain way. You got to handle that with care. With any social message, everyone seems to have like not everyone, but a lot of people seem to have the same take. And I feel like that's because they just didn't really handle the writing process of something that clearly needed more time, because of how delicate and fragile it's the thing you're trying to say is. Like, it's got to be handled with care.
Right. And you know, I will say on the original 1974, the message they were trying to put out there in that film, they did not like hammer it down your throat. So I give it that. You know, that was not the whole entire movie. The 2019, it's like, it just feels like it's the whole movie.
I think a lot of the dialogue is where I take my biggest issue too, because it just feels like you're ripping it right from tweets, which is not how people talk.
Yeah.
Like...
Oh, exactly. I thought the same thing too. We even had the one girl, I forgot her name, but her boyfriend was like, you know, I'm getting real sick of this. He's like, you know, not every man, you know, is a rapist. You know, I'm a man. They kicked him out of the house. I'm like, what'd you do that for?
I remember him kind of being like a little like passive or something towards her, but it's like they treated it the same way as how they would like a character who is, well, yeah, like how we were talking about earlier. A certain word we can't say on YouTube. I don't know. I feel like there was something wrong in the writing process that it just didn't go through. Something's not coming through with your message in this film. Going back to the dialogue for a second, you have the main character trying to stand up to this like frat cult thing, and he says something like, "Suck a fat fart, you loser." And I'm like, no one says, like, no one talks like that. Like, I think one of the biggest issues this movie has is dialogue. Like, you gotta write dialogue that real people would really say.
Right. And I hate when they do like dialogue like that. Like so many other movies do it too, and I agree with you on that 100%.
Most of the kills in this movie are either off screen or clear homages to other things, which like I'm fine with, unless it's done in a way that is just not very interesting and just feels like, oh, we needed to do some kind of reference to something else to be cool. And that's kind of one of the kills in this movie. I can't remember her name, but the girl who needed the Diva Cup, she gets killed in Exorcist 3 jump scare style, where like the killer runs up behind her and gets the Christmas lights behind her neck. And to me, it comes off as like they just did this so that people would point and be like, oh, look, Exorcist 3 reference, you know? It's not actually like that cool of a kill. But I don't know, Matt, how do you feel about the kills in this movie?
Like you said, most of them are off screen. I feel like if you like, because the one girl was in the attic looking for Christmas lights. Then she lights them up, makes sure they work, sees one of the killers behind her off screen. I feel like they could have got it. Even with the PG-13 rating I feel like they could have showed us a little bit more. But you know, you see the kill in the opening where the girl's, you know, walking through the snow and everything. So that was pretty cool. I don't know. To me, movies don't need gore; they need suspense. So I'm not too upset about that part.
I feel that. I would agree with that. I just, to me, I don't feel like a lot of these kills are worth my time because there's not a whole lot of suspense.
Right.
Like you were talking about the kill where it's like the guy gets revealed by the Christmas lights or whatever. I'm like, man, I've seen that a million times before. I do think that, I don't know. I feel like if this movie wasn't so rushed, if the production didn't just absolutely suck for this, they had more time to make this, maybe have it come out like the following year. Well, you know, that was 2020, so that was a disaster, but nobody knew about that in 2019.
Exactly. Right.
If this would have, circumstances aside, come out at just a better time, given your writers and directors just more time to creatively figure things out, this might have been a better product, but what we have, I just feel like is an unfinished mess.
When I heard about that movie, I was so excited for it, you know, saw it, and I was like, okay, I can really see why this one didn't make any money. This one made less money than the 2006 one did, so I thought that was pretty insane, you know, because by today's standards in 2019, tickets were so much more expensive than they were back in 2006. So that, you know, that was crazy to me, but people didn't like that movie, and you know, I see why.
So how would you rank these movies then? All three of the Black Christmas.
2006 would probably be my number one. 1974 would be my number two, and then 2019 would be my number three.
That's very fair. The original is always going to be my favorite. That's the only thing that I would that I would change personally, but I really do enjoy two of these movies.
Yeah,
for sure. I really love what Black Christmas brings to the table with its nasty kills. I think Black Christmas 1974 is just so important as a slasher movie. It's required viewing, I think, as a horror fan. And 2019, I just feel like is a misfire. But
yeah, and it is.
But with Christmas horror though, like just expanding this beyond the Black Christmas franchise, what are some of your favorites?
Well, I'll start with this. I'm excited to go see It's a Wonderful Knife. I'm going to see that tomorrow night. So I'm excited to see that. I've been waiting to see that. I also liked the movie Silent Night from 2012. That was a good one. There's another one called like Santa's Sleigh. That one was really, really terrible. And there is, I didn't finish this last year, but I want to finish it this year. Christmas, Bloody Christmas with the animatronic Santa Claus.
That was fun. If you didn't finish, how far into that did you get? Just out of curiosity.
I maybe got like less than half. Yeah, and then I think my daughter walked in, and I'm like, yeah, we got to turn this off. I loved the dark tones in that movie. That movie was so dark, and for some reason, I just love that.
I really enjoyed that movie. All I'm gonna say without spoiling anything is the ending just goes on forever. Like that's my my only big criticism of the movie. I think the whole movie is very fun. It's very bloody and gory and insane. Just a fun Christmas slasher. But man, they just did not know where to end that movie. I feel because I just feel like it keeps going. You'll see when you watch it, probably. I don't know, but
I'm gonna finish it up this year. Probably start it over from the beginning. Like I said, I liked what I saw. I started watching some of the Silent Night, Deadly Nights a couple years ago. I think I watched the first and second one. Didn't watch the third one. Krampus is one I didn't care for too much. I know a lot of people love that movie, but I think maybe I just need to give it a second watch.
That was one I wasn't crazy about, and honestly, until I watched it again, I think the biggest thing for me was like there's just not really any kills. That's not really
right
what the focus of that movie is. And I just felt like with such a gnarly monster, it would have been cool to see him rip some people to shreds.
Right. I agree with that. And there's also another one I really love. It's called Better Watch Out. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, that's like psychological horror right there. I
liked that. That was different. It was intense more than I thought it would be, and they had a great story. I love that movie.
That is one of the most like underrated gems maybe of all of Christmas horror. If you watch nothing else, no other recommendations from this podcast, that is one for sure to check out. I don't even know what to say about it without spoiling it. How do you feel about this one, Matt?
It was good. I mean, you kind of figure out what's going on within like the first half an hour. You know what I mean? Like you think it's something completely different, and then within half an hour, you're like, bam, okay, this is what's going on. And then it just doesn't stop from there.
Yeah, without a doubt. There's a really fun twist in like those first 30 minutes or so that's like, whoa, oh shit, okay, we're reinventing what we thought this whole movie was going to be. And I think that it lends itself to just such an original idea for not being the thing that you think it's going to be the whole time.
Exactly.
A great blind watch without a doubt. So we have It's a Wonderful Knife on the horizon. What are your expectations with this one?
I saw the trailer. It looks good from the trailer. It sounds a little bit like Totally Killer, which we just got. And I did like that movie. So I'm going to give it a shot, and hopefully I like it. And I think I'll like it, but we'll see.
Yeah, Michael Kennedy writes this, who also made Freaky from 2020, which I personally really enjoyed. I thought that was just a fun little slasher film. I hope it's good, though, because like a big reason I like that one especially is because Christopher Landon directed it, at least I think. So I'm curious to see what Michael Kennedy does like with a different director, not working with Christopher Landon. What is this going to look like? What is a slasher movie from him going to look like without that kind of touch? So I don't know. Like, is it still going to hold up? I hope so. That's what I guess I'm worried about right now. Cause I do feel a lot of Happy Death Day and Freaky. That is like something that I was personally really magnetized to. And I feel like that's going to be lost here. So right now I'm kind of iffy about the film, but I'm also seeing it tomorrow and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it. I also found out Justin Long's in it, so I'm like, I like everything with him. So I'm like, this might be good.
He always makes things better, especially horror movies.
He does. He gets, he usually never makes it out of them. But you know what? I mean, hey, that's all right.
He's kind of known for being a douchebag in horror, which I think is so funny.
Oh, he is. I think the only one he wasn't was Jeepers Creepers, and I think what's the other one he was in? Drag Me to Hell.
Drag Me to Hell, yeah. He's okay, yeah. He's I think he's nice in that movie. I haven't seen that in a long time, but Love Justin Long.
Yeah, no, he's a good actor. He's funny. Like he brings in the comedic relief when it needs it, and it's great.
And then of course, like the big thing we got to talk about regarding holiday horror, a recent announcement was that Terrifier 3 would be Christmas and holiday horror themed. What are your thoughts on that real quick?
I'm excited for that. I saw the clip of the trailer for that, and I think it's going to be gruesome, and I think that's how he's going to top what he did in Terrifier 2, and I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good, and I heard that the first 5 minutes are going to be really controversial, so I'd have to agree with that. If it's going to go down the route I think it's going to go down.
It makes me wonder, like, what those first 5 minutes are going to be, because Terrifier 2 picks up right where we left off from the first film. So like, are the first 5 minutes, are we not doing that? Are we not picking up right where we left off? Is this going to be like just a couple, like a flash forward or whatever, versus starting right where we were, like how we did last time? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
However they want to do it, I think they'll execute it correctly. Maybe even it's like the same year but 2 months later for Christmas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I do from I think I've heard even you say it. I think that what we saw in that teaser trailer, I feel like that's going to be the opening scene.
I think so too. I mean, he's hyping up the fact that like the first 5 minutes are going to be controversial, and that's not even the big kill sequence. So that makes me think, Art the Clown is going to murder a child. So it's just getting right into it, which is like, it's totally awful. But also, if you want to do what Terrifier films do, which is upping the ante with the gore and the shock value and all that, that is kind of a place we haven't gone to yet in this franchise. And I'm curious to see how they explore that, if tastefully or not.
Right. And the thing is like, I don't let that stuff bother me because I know it's not real. It's a movie. So I feel like if they go backwards and tone their kills down, that could only hurt them. So I feel like they got to go forward.
And I mean, there's a lot of people who are saying like, oh my God, like I hope Art the Clown doesn't do that and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, but the opposite is maybe worse for them. If they were to just like tone it down or keep it at the same level as Terrifier 2, the film would be criticized. Way harder than it would be than if they were to kill a child, which, many other horror films have done before in the past. It's not, we're not breaking any new ice except for the franchise we are. You know what I mean?
I have faith in whatever they decide to do, 100%.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I believe in this team. I know if anyone can execute a killer Terrifier 3, it's the same people that made the last one, man. I mean, I was so impressed with 2, especially because it felt like they took notes from the audience about things that needed to be improved upon with Terrifier 1. And I'm sure the same will be true about Terrifier 3.
Yep. And I love that movie too. So, I'm so excited for 3. It sucks we got to wait almost a year.
Well, we're getting it in October though, which is nuts for a holiday horror release. What are your thoughts on that? October 25th is the release date, 2024.
I think it works. That doesn't bother me at all, honestly.
It's probably going to go to the Screambox, that streaming service that the like Bloody Disgusting's streaming service. It'll probably go there in December anyways, so like everyone is going to be able to see Art the Clown for the holidays.
Right, exactly.
Do you think it's going to be like 2 hours again, like Terrifier 2, like have that extended runtime?
I do. I think it'll, I think it'll probably match the runtime of Terrifier 2, if not even go a little bit longer. And they did such a great job with keeping you entertained for those, I think it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like I told you on the Terrifier podcast, I was not bored once watching that movie. And I think that's great that someone can make a film that long and not have any, down parts that make you feel like, oh, I need something to snap me back into this. That movie had it all.
And that's tough to do, man. I mean, I've seen a lot of 3-hour, 3-ish hour movies like that, where it's like, there's always something about it where I'm just like, okay, this part drags a little bit. And that's just because of the runtime, for whatever reason. It's tough to keep people entertained for 3 hours doing anything,
it is.
So, I mean, it's impressive that movie was able to accomplish what it did. Will Terrifier 3 be that ambitious? I hope so. I hope, even if it's not the runtime, just something about it is ambitious and pushing boundaries like we were talking about. I mean, they're kind of already showing that in the teaser trailer. So let's hope that's where it goes. But with that, because we're talking about Terrifier, how do you think like Art the Clown gets his body back, if that is going to be the case? Do you have any theories about that at the moment?
Maybe they do the opening, like the whole opening sequence, like following the same night when they're back in the asylum. And then we actually see his body regenerate in that room while he's still in that hospital. And then maybe Art disappears for 2 months, and then bam, we're at Christmas. That's only that to me that makes a little bit more sense.
That could be, yeah, that could be cool. So that we're, kind of following the same trend as the last one, showing where we left off and all that. That could be fun. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think Victoria and the little pale girl will be back for some more Christmas action?
I think the little pale girl will. I don't know. I can't see Victoria doing it. I don't know. Maybe Art kills her after he regenerates. I have no idea. For some reason, I don't like when I saw the trailer and I'm thinking, oh, what's going to happen in Terrifier 3? I don't see her in it for whatever reason.
She was a character in the background of both of the last two movies, really. Yeah. And then she kind of shows up at the end to rebirth Art the Clown.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering where that goes. She had the glowing yellow eyes that like the little pale girl also had. So I don't know, like what's up with that? Is she a demon now too, or no?
I don't know. Maybe he just like needed her to do that.
I have a really fun. I've been on break this week, but I have a really fun Terrifier theory when I come back. It's something I noticed about like 1 moving into 2. Another connection that I feel like has. I don't think it's been pointed out yet about like a certain character. And I'll kind of bring this up to you real quick. Do you remember like the homeless lady in Terrifier 1 who's like living in the building?
Yeah.
She talks about having a child named Emily, and that's also the name of the little pale girl who died in the circus. Yeah, it's something I noticed. I was like, oh, whoa, Damien's cooking back there. He's cooking up something that we don't know about yet, and I think it all has to do with this creepy little girl somehow, some way.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't put that connection together.
I literally just noticed it like 2 days ago. I did both movies again. I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. Oh, that's the mom.
That's a good catch. That could definitely be something.
But regarding Black Christmas, bringing things full circle, how do you feel about just like this whole franchise as a whole? And do you feel like another one is necessary?
There's 3 Black Christmas movies, okay? Everyone you have the original and then you have 2 remakes. I feel like if they bring this back, the only effective way to do it is a sequel to the original. That's the only way I can see them doing it.
Kind of like Halloween 2018 style, bringing old characters back and all that.
Exactly. Because I feel like if you do a remake to the 2006, it wouldn't make sense because that movie wasn't effective money-wise. It just didn't have the audience it needed. And then a sequel to the 2019 one, that would just be stupid in my opinion. So I feel like you have to go back to the original.
Some of those people are even still alive, I think, too. And some of them, were even in the 2006 remake. So as different characters.
Yep. Mrs. Mack in the remake played, I think, Phyllis in the original. Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
So I mean, I would be totally down for that. Like some kind of continuation. Maybe we get it next year. That's an anniversary. Is that 50 years next year? The 2024 to 1974.
It will be. Yeah.
50 years. Nuts.
50 years. And I know Bob Clark wanted to do some type of sequel to the original. He did. Unfortunately, he passed away, but that would have been great. And it's so funny to me. He also did A Christmas Story, 2 completely polar opposites.
But both Christmas movies.
Yes, it's just so funny to me that he did Black Christmas.
It's awesome, man. I really like both of those movies, too. And Christmas Story was filmed in my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio. Both of those Christmas movies are very near and dear to my heart. So I love them. I love those movies that he made. But yeah, any kind of final closing thoughts on this franchise before we really wrap things up here?
I think overall every movie's different in its own way. I think it would be great to get a sequel to the original, like we just discussed. And I really give props to the 2006 remake just because that movie is like near and dear to me. I love it. I'm going to watch it every year. So I do hope we do get something else Black Christmas related in the future. It
was a blast rewatching it, man. I'll tell you what, I haven't seen the remake in such a long time. So it might be one that I add to my circuit for December now. I have a few that I watch this time of year. So that might be one that I start adding to the rotation. So it's a great watch for sure. Well, Matt, as always, it's a blast talking with you, man. Where can the people at home find your shit out there in the universe?
Okay, guys. So Slashing It with Matt on YouTube. And then we have TikTok. I'm still on TikTok, and that is Everything with Matt. So just obviously replace Slashing with Everything, and that's where you can find me.
Hell yeah, man. Good stuff. Well, go check out Matt and all of his crazy pages out there. And thank you all again for watching another podcast from Killjoy Jake and friends. Is that what we're calling it nowadays? I don't know. But sure, fuck it. Thank you all again for watching, everybody. And as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all. Peace out.
All right. Bye, guys.